to other fuels. Across the globe, it is emerging as a key renewable and, importantly, sustainable solution for industries looking to decarbonise. It is being considered for its potential use in both maritime and aviation transport. In our own state, we have seen the recent introduction of hydrogen-powered buses. While limited in numbers, they have had an impact. While currently expensive, they show the potential of hydrogen as a solution. Despite its benefits and abundant availability of necessary resources, we have of yet do not have a hydrogen strategy, and this is quite bizarre. We are playing catch-up. The European Commission published its hydrogen strategy 2 years ago, July 2020, and Scotland published its strategy in 2015. We are in serious danger of being left behind. So we are serious about the use of renewable energy. We need to make most of our resources, and we need to create a hydrogen network. Without such a strategy, our ability to attract funding would be hampered, as will our potential to become a world green hydrogen leader, which I believe we can do. The green hydrogen we produce could be used to reduce our own carbon emissions and support us in our ambition to be a carbon neutral economy by 2050. Not only this, but the potential exists to sell this energy products on the international markets too. In an increasingly unstable world where we are still dealing with the shocks of the economic crash, Brexit, the COVID pandemic and the Russian illegal invasion of Ukraine, it has never been more important that we try and build energy security in our own country. This will be good for business, consumers and the entire economy. Ireland has huge potential to develop offshore wind farming, but we need to ensure that our ports and coastal communities are supported in our efforts, and we are seriously lacking in this. Unfortunately, Belfast's D1 Harbour, which I hope to visit soon, remains the only facility on the island to provide both staging and construction services for offshore wind and farms. That said, there are a number of ports across the state that are at various stages of development. I'm very proud to say the ports in the Midwest region, including Shannon Foynes and Moneypoint, are looking at investment to get them to the point where they can service the construction needs of offshore wind energy. Other ports such as Killybegs, the Cork Docklands and Rosslare are further along in this development project as well. The ramping up of investment in these ports and the adoption of an all-Ireland approach to issues of energy and climate action are critical to our efforts to reach our climate targets. And let me be abundantly clear on the next point. If we do not provide the necessary investments for our ports, green hydrogen and offshore wind projects will be directed to those countries that are willing to provide such investment. I have no doubt that if we don't build the infrastructure needed in Ireland, others will build ports from the west coast of Britain, from France and even from the Netherlands. And in an ironic twist, they will possibly sell their energy to us. The country that should be a leader in the world will become an importer of energy created by wind and hydrogen if we don't get our act together. Irish wind farms could create jobs in France and support businesses in Holland and across Europe if we get our act together. However, I understand from feedback from those involved in the industry that some of these foreign ports are already engaging with these projects. So strategic investment must be directed urgently to our ports to enable them to build the necessary infrastructure necessary to support the construction of offshore wind energy. We need to ensure as far as possible we build our own energy security and develop an ability to sell any excess. This is not to suggest that we as a state have been entirely idle on the issue. The German-Irish Chamber of Commerce and of Industry and Commerce has formed a Hydrogen Council to forge closer relationships in the field of green energy. We have plans for green hydrogen facilities already in place in both Moneypoint in County Clare and the €200 million green hydrogen plant in Mayo. However, without a national green hydrogen strategy, we are limited in our potential for success. Our bill is simple but crucial. It looks to ensure that this state is prepared and ready to realise our full potential in the field of green hydrogen. It obliges the Minister of the Environment, Climate and Communications to publish such a strategy within 6 months, including a provision for consultation with relevant stakeholders. I welcome the Government have now initiated the public consultation stage of this process. I would ask people to engage with that, and I look forward to the 6 months coming up and we move on with this.
I'm also delighted to be co-presenting this bill with my party comrades, given the urgency of the climate crisis that we're in and the need to adapt to clean, green technology as soon as possible. I've noted your amendment But normally I might be very disappointed with an amendment, but I acknowledge that we do, that we are having a public consultation now with interested stakeholders, and it's very important that we get this right. So, that's welcome. I have a particular constituency interest in green hydrogen, and I'd like to address it here, not alone as a fuel, but in the context of its wider impact on how we work and live and do business. It's a clean, green, renewable, sustainable fuel coming from the electrolysis of water. And from source to use, it has huge potential to change transport and heating in North Kildare and all across the 32 counties. In North Kildare, we have a highly aware, climate-conscious population with huge concern that the local biodiversity and ecosystems be protected for this and for future generations. This was evidenced in Leixlip recently by a huge outcry from pollution in the River Rye, and just a few weeks ago, and people were extremely distressed about it. Equally, the lockdown gave people a sense of awareness of their local area and the fragility of the ecosystems and habitats. There's also a big business and an economic component to the importance of the hydrogen bill for my constituency. We have become, in Kildare, we've become a huge, major logistics hub, and with a lot of the big players having warehousing and logistical operations in Kildare. And because of that, we have a major use of HGVs. And of course, there is all that work and all those jobs as well, so that we can meet customer demand and expectation across the island. A company's reputation might only be as good as its ability to fulfil customer demand, and the interconnectedness of community and nature is the same interconnectedness when it comes to logistics, warehousing, production and retail. Clean green hydrogen is absolutely crucial to our environment in North Kildare in every sense, be it in natural, transport or economic. And I like to think that this demonstrates the importance of joined-up thinking and big picture politics. In North Kildare, we have suffered from a distinct lack of thinking in our economy, and our communities are suffering from this lack of big picture politics. Just this week, I've been addressing the lack of connection between planning and housing and public transport. And, we have people stranded in housing estates in rural communities, and despite the belief that, we can all, the power of the bicycle, for a lot of my constituents who are so far away and don't have proper public transport and are so far away from where they need to get educated or go to work, cycling isn't always an option for them. So hydrogen can be very important to fuel public transport and indeed to fuel cars as well, clean way of fueling cars. Hydrogen engines are critical too as public transport, it's embracing this new green technology. And it also has huge potential for us in aviation. And as an island nation, we should never have sold off our national airline and left all those talented workers go to the mercy of the private market. But I know a growing number of people are talking about not travelling by air now, and are certainly cutting it to a minimum for the sake of the planet. But I hope that maybe the use of hydrogen in aviation might have a major impact environmentally as well, in terms of customer choice, because we are an island nation, and unlike our European neighbours, we don't have the option of hopping on a train in our capital city and being taken to a capital city in another country. So, that option simply isn't available to us. So we have to be realistic as well, because climate action, it has to suit the citizen too. We have to make the best of it, and this is an option. So as a member of the Climate Committee, I'm too aware of the urgency that we face, and I accept the amendment and delighted that this is going ahead, consultation. Thank you.
I move amendment number 1 to delete all words after that and substitute the following. Dáil Éireann resolves that in light of the ongoing consultation of the interested stakeholders on the preparation of a hydrogen strategy, the response period for which will close in 8 weeks' time, the Green Hydrogen Strategy Bill 2022 be deemed read a second time this day 6 months, to allow for the development and implementation of the hydrogen strategy for Ireland, and for them to be taken into account in the further consideration of this bill. At the outset, I want to say that I fully agree with the objectives of this bill, that the state should realise the full potential of green hydrogen in decarbonising our economy and energy system, that there is a need for a national hydrogen strategy and that there should be a comprehensive consultation with stakeholders. I am also grateful for the engagement of the deputies on this issue, and I and my department have considered their suggestions with great care. Therefore, while I acknowledge the intention of this bill, it is not required. The Government has already committed to prioritising the development of a hydrogen strategy in the National Energy Security Framework. I will now outline the important work that has been undertaken to fulfil this commitment. Firstly, it is very important to note that the work on developing and delivering a hydrogen strategy for Ireland is already underway. I mentioned that the Government has committed to prioritising the development of a hydrogen strategy in the National Energy Security Framework. This framework was developed to address the challenges of ensuring that ongoing and long-term security of affordable energy supply. It sets out a number of measures to accelerate the investment in renewables planned in the Climate Action Plan, and this includes a hydrogen strategy for Ireland as one of the key priorities. Green hydrogen, which is hydrogen produced from renewable sources, has been identified in the Climate Action Plan as having the potential to support decarbonisation across several sectors, including heavy goods transport, high-temperature heat for industry and electricity generation. It is intended that the hydrogen strategy will expand upon the role of hydrogen in Ireland's energy system and the actions needed for its development. In addition, the work is underway for security of supply review of Ireland's electricity and natural gas systems will be done in parallel with the development of the hydrogen strategy to ensure that long-term security needs take account of future hydrogen technologies. As an essential part of the work of preparing the hydrogen strategy, the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications has just recently launched a consultation seeking the views of stakeholders and interested parties to inform the development of the strategy. A comprehensive consultation paper has been developed, setting out various areas of interest to be considered in the development of the hydrogen strategy and inviting stakeholders' views of an extensive range of specific questions to be answered in this regard. There is an 8-week period for the consultation, which will mean that the detailed work of analysis of the various submissions will begin in early September. It can be anticipated that the submissions received will be extensive, given the high degree of public interest in this topic and its importance for both Ireland's future energy security and its high export potential. The aim is to have the strategy in place later this year. To conclude, while I fully agree with the objectives of this bill, I must stress again that it is seeking to address an issue, the hydrogen strategy, which the Government has already committed to prioritising in the National Energy Security Framework, and strong progress has already been made. Therefore, it is appropriate for further consideration to be deferred until such a time as the consultation has been completed, an analysis of the replies being undertaken and the hydrogen strategy has been published. And I welcome my colleague Minister Ryan back to the Chamber.
Do you want to come in at this point, Minister?
To apologise, we had Cabinet Subcommittee, but I was very glad Malcolm Noonan...
It's a 15-minute slot.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'll just very briefly add to what Malcolm says. Minister Noonan has said we are trained towards developing this strategy. We agree with the opposition. It's critical, central to our development of our whole energy future. We have real potential in the scale of the offshore wind power, particularly that we have, and other renewable sources, which can be converted through electrolysis into green hydrogen as the centre of our industrial as well as energy strategy. And we're committed to that. We're committed to it's at early stage for every country, even in those countries that are across Europe are talking a lot about hydrogen. If you look at their development path, they're at the very start in this large-scale green hydrogen application. It is likely to be first centred around large users, large industrial users, large power generation, large transport users, rather than in the distribution system. We have, as I said, real potential in the development of our offshore wind plan, which will be state-led, to also make sure that we incorporate hydrogen plan within that. The two go together. And I think this public consultation, which has started as part of the development of our hydrogen strategy, is critical. We believe the government is doing what the bill opposite is proposing. So we look forward to coming back in 6 months' time, having delivered the sort of strategy that is speculated.
The next slot now, the member isn't here. So there's the slot after that is Sinn Féin with 2 members. If one of you wishes to go now into this slot, or
So are we going to take 2 separate 10-minute slots now?
You can if you want to.
So you want me to go first? Or you?
No, you go.
Okay. Gormaigat, and I want to commend my colleague Darren O'Rourke and also Deputies Quinlivan and Cronin for bringing this bill before the House. I want to thank the Minister for being here and for that response. And I want to commend the fact that we are finally moving towards a proposition where we will have a hydrogen strategy for the state. I would argue very forcefully that that needs to be an all-Ireland strategy insofar as is possible. I'm sure many will be surprised to hear that we don't actually have a hydrogen strategy in place, and particularly with all the debates that we have around climate action, the fact that we know that green hydrogen can become an invaluable mechanism by which we can try to achieve our climate action targets. The fact that we are at a consultation process in 2022 when we're talking about targets that are going to be reached in 2030 is, I suppose, telling and is symptomatic of the challenges that we face in order to reach our climate targets. So the one point I will make in respect of what that strategy should look like when it's completed, because I accept that we need to hear from stakeholders, we need to hear from experts, we need to hear from communities, and we need to hear from industries in relation to how we can actually have a fit-for-purpose green hydrogen strategy that actually delivers its full potential. But I would say this: we need to learn from the mistakes in previous areas, and particularly in respect to onshore wind energy, which never fully reached its potential and probably never will reach its potential. And I would argue that that's largely due to the fact that it was completely outsourced and left to the private sector to deliver. So that it became the only consideration for the location of onshore wind farms, for example, became whether or not a private company could source land. Nothing else virtually was taken into account, only where land was available for purchase for that product. And what we saw then was something that should have been a hugely positive development in terms of renewable energy became a source of conflict between communities and within communities, between individual landowners, and, as I say, it meant that we never actually reached our full potential because we never actually set out at a government level a strategy that would ensure that we had the best possible resources in terms of wind energy from onshore related turbines. We didn't have any strategy as to where they should be located, where the optimum place for them to be located, how they would connect to the grid. So I would argue very strongly that the final strategy must be a government-led strategy. The rollout must be, and this cannot just become another mechanism whereby the state is paying millions of taxpayers' money in subsidies but having no control whatsoever in terms of how and who benefits from it. I just want to